Figma is great for so many things. I use it for wireframing. I use it for website design. It's great for app development or app design. Another thing I love about Figma is just like the ability for developers to have access to everything. So, if dev mode is enabled, you kind of have this view of all of the technical details you might need about the HTML, CSS for different components.
You can see all this stuff real quick.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, you can select like an element here. It'll tell you like the padding of that element on the page. It'll show you the border, radius, the margins, flexbox stuff, background colors, filters, anything that's like basically anything that's like the building blocks of that component.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like every developer's wet dream is to have all this stuff figured out, and it's like the designer is usually not going to be able to tell you that unless they're super talented and can do both things. So that's a huge part for me.
Yeah.
Another thing that's like super awesome is kind of having these advanced prototyping is just kind of like a huge game changer too. Like being able to build out a design like this and then being able to link the navigation so that when I present this to a customer, we can actually show them like, okay, here's how the drop down is going to work, and you can see, this is not something that you'd never be able to do in Sketch. I mean, maybe you can now, but having that ability to actually build some of the functionality into the prototype is super, super, super cool.
That is cool. So that it basically is a functioning website at that point, right?
I'd say it's a functioning example of the website. There's still kind of limited on what you can do here. But yeah, you can definitely add some cool like linking of the things. You can even add some kind of like rudimentary transitions, animations and stuff. Some people can get crazy with the interactions. There's a guy who is kind of like building like a side-scrolling Pokemon video game out of Figma using the variables, and it's like
I saw that.
Man, the possibilities are endless. It's like you can literally, if you put your mind to it, you can come up with some crazy ideas with Figma.
So while we're here, would you mind maybe walking us through kind of your process from like a blank Figma project to like your initial, you start with wireframes in Figma, or is it kind of, what does that kind of process look like?
Yeah, so I guess the very first step is we'll go into a mood board, which we'll use Milanote for. Milanote is like a note-taking software that lets you get pretty granular with like the boards and everything. So we have all of our projects over here. For a specific project, you have all of these cards that you can kind of organize things for the project. So we like to kind of build out like a mood board based on the branding stuff that they gave us. So here we have their content that they provided outlined, their brand colors. We get all of the inspiration that they send us, maybe from their existing site or like catalogs or anything that they have. And then I'll kind of go in my own direction and pick some inspiration from the web that I feel like is a good fit for their brand, and kind of pitch this to them as like, here's what we think that we could, pull together for you guys. Is there anything here that hits home? Is there anything that feels out of place? Let us know how you feel about these, graphics here. And we're kind of trying to get like a visceral idea, because people have a hard time kind of explaining what they like and don't like. So sometimes showing it to them on a board, you can kind of pull that information from them a little bit easier. So getting their inspiration from that, we'll jump into a wireframe. I'll show you an example. So real simple, start with the home page. Always kind of a good starting point to, I always feel like the home page is kind of like your selling, like your number one selling point for the whole website. It's all on the home page. So, we'll start with the hero section, kind of lay out the navigation at the top, still keeping everything very bare bones at this point. So like depending on what the client has, we might make this more simple. So this website already had their content kind of figured out. So it was like, we're using the wireframe to kind of frame their content in a way that makes sense. So you can see we're, using text boxes with generic kind of like, not the actual fonts that are going to be on the website, but just kind of getting something on the page to show them like, okay, we'll have an image over here, we'll have a button over here, linking to, the most important thing, like kind of getting that hierarchy figured out. Like, what are the call to actions going to be? What do you want people to do on the website? Like, are you trying to get them to contact you? Are you trying to give them more information? How do you present that information in a way that makes sense? So, laying out all the services here, laying out the location. Is there a blog? We'll start laying out these different sections to kind of paint the picture of, this is a teaser of all the content that's going to be on the rest of the website. So we have all these buttons kind of spread throughout the homepage to kind of guide people through the actual website. So then once we have the homepage, we'll get their feedback on that. If they like the homepage, we'll go ahead and start cranking out the rest of the pages. This is a pretty lengthy website, so it's like I can't run through everything. But yeah, sometimes it takes a while to get all these wireframes done, but it's it's super, super important. Saves us a bunch of time in the long run because in the past, before worked on some of these bigger clients, we would just run straight into the design process and it would almost always bite us in the ass. So it was kind of a huge step for us to learn how to take it slow, build out the wireframe. Once we have the wireframe confirmed, obviously we have kind of like a feedback session where we get the client to comment. You can see some of the comments on here from this wireframe stage. They're telling us to use the same header. Figma makes it really easy to kind of, have conversations over the comments. So I can, ask for clarification if I need to.
Right. On client side, how easy is it for them to go in and make those kind of comments?
Oh, it's super simple. So basically they'll receive the website in a way that kind of looks like this. So this is like a presentation mode where we can use this to share the website. If we're on a screen share, I can walk them through it, or they can log in themselves and see it. There's a comment button up here at the top. And so that'll save that comment in that spot on that artboard, which makes it really easy for me to kind of keep track of how many pages have how many revisions. Makes it really easy to organize things for me, and my workflow has improved greatly from having that. Mm-hmm. I think that another really cool thing, if say that me and another designer are so I have this design open on another tab, you can see my cursor here. So while I'm logged in and someone else is logged in, we can both be working on the same document together and making changes and moving things around and leaving each other comments hey, fix this. And it's real time. So it's almost like you're in the same room as that person, especially if we're on a phone call together. It's it's like I'm in the office. It's great. Once we get that approval from them, I'm going to pass this document off to the developer, who will then, take all of these fields and images. It's super easy to export images from here. It's export capabilities in Figma are super great. So, they can kind of save these as different file types, different sizes. Cropping is really easy. So if maybe an image needs to be cropped differently, I can do almost all of that stuff within Figma instead of having to jump to Photoshop or some other app. I think that Figma has definitely made my job a little bit more fun. I feel like when I was working with Sketch, it was just kind of you're always fighting against this software to get something done, whereas when I'm working with Figma, it's just everything just kind of makes sense.